Old Hondas never die, they just get faster. From the 90s survival manual. So I bought this abandoned Civic for $500. And you're probably asking, why? Well, I'll tell you, it makes you smile if you bring it back. Let me show you how it all started. For me, this is a kind of ritual. Before I even think about starting the engine, I clean the car first. It makes the work more enjoyable, and more importantly, it gives me full access to check the condition of the floors. The trunk was full of spare parts, and I'm pretty sure many of them will come in handy later. As I started unloading, the rear of the car actually lifted a little. In the spare tire well, there was standing water, and some surface rust had started to form. Next, I removed the seats to take out all the parts and leftover items, inspect the floor, and begin cleaning the interior. I always find something interesting in abandoned cars. In this one, it was spare parts and tools that I can definitely use. After clearing the interior, I started removing the sound insulation. It came off very easily, most likely because of moisture trapped underneath. But I got lucky. The metal was still in good shape, and there was almost no rust. Next, I used a vacuum to finish cleaning, starting with the trunk and working into the cabin. I also cleared out the drainage channels around the trunk. They were packed with leaves and pine needles. Because the sunroof had been left open for years, there was moisture inside the cabin. The lower part of the sound insulation, between the engine bay and the interior, was completely soaked. You could actually squeeze water out of it. I usually prop that section up with plastic bottles and leave the car to air out. Over time, it dries completely. I live in a place where the weather changes constantly. It rains for almost half the year, and when the sun does come out, it gets way too hot. That's why I'm especially thankful to my friends at Eagle Peak for providing this quick deploy canopy. It takes just a couple of minutes to set up. I always secure the legs with sandbags so it stays stable, even in strong wind, which we get a lot of around here. I've been using this canopy for a couple of months now, and I can truly recommend it. You'll find the official website and the exact model I use linked in the video description.
Now it was time to deal with the engine, but there was so much grime. You know me.
The starter turns, and that's already a good sign. It spins smoothly with no hesitation, which means the engine isn't locked up, and that's the first step forward. Next, I move on to the spark plugs. They don't come out easily. There's real resistance. Not surprising, considering this engine likely ran with a turbo and spent a lot of time at high RPMs. That kind of heat tends to seize things up, and since this head is aluminum, I've got to be careful. One wrong move, and the threads could strip. So, I take my time. No rush. Once the plugs are out, I hook up the compression tester and begin checking, one cylinder at a time. The results are on the screen. And keep in mind, this engine is cold. 160 psi on cylinders 1 and 2. 175 on 3 and 4. Really solid numbers, especially for an engine with over 400,000 kilometers on it. That's more than just good. That's a green light to keep going. I was almost sure the problem was with the fuel pump. Same thing had happened before, with the Sienna, the Supra, and the Mustang. And this time, when I switched on the ignition, I didn't hear the usual sound of the pump kicking on. That's why I was almost 100% sure the issue was with the fuel pump. I pulled it out to inspect the pump and take a look inside the tank. And to my surprise, the pump was clean. The filter sock looked brand new, and the inside of the tank was spotless. I tested the pump's resistance with a multimeter. It showed exactly 4 ohms, a great reading. But there was no power going to the pump. Then I thought, maybe the ECU was the issue. It had been sitting on the floor and the sunroof had been open for years. Water could have gotten in.
Looks great.
But no. The ECU turned out to be in perfect condition. Next, I checked the fuses and relays. I pulled the ones under the steering wheel. All of them look fine, but there's a mess of wires down there. I'll need to clean that up so they don't get in the way. Then I head under the hood, and almost immediately, I notice a blown fuse. I check the fuse chart to see what it controls. Turns out, it's the one responsible for powering the ECU. And since the ECU controls the fuel pump, and now, when I switch on the ignition, I can actually hear the fuel pump kick on. The engine started up confidently, and it's running smooth. The only thing, it's loud, because there's no exhaust system yet. But that's not important right now. I need to take it for a quick test drive to see how the transmission and clutch feel. I'm starting the car like it's a scene from some movie. I'll definitely need to buy an ignition switch soon. It'll be way safer that way. Right now, it might look kind of funny, but safe? Not really. From the very first moments driving this car, it feels like I'm stepping back in time. No power steering, everything creaks. It's all manual, and with the muffler rusted out, it's just as loud inside. I actually like that this Honda gives me those raw, honest sensations. Just a few kilometers in, I can tell. Second and third gear shift cleanly. That's a good sign, especially for a turbo build. Second gear is usually the first to go. The clutch travel is extremely short. I'll either have to get used to it or adjust it. In corners, I have to constantly correct it. It feels like I'm catching the car mid-turn. This isn't a car you can drive casually. It demands your attention. And when braking, I hear scraping from the rear. Sounds like the drum brake shoes are worn down to bare metal. I'll have to take it apart and check. But I won't be able to truly evaluate this car until I get the parts and hook up the turbo. But first, I need to change the oil and clean the oil pan. Luckily, one of the parts that came with the car was a brand new oil pan gasket, so all I need now is oil and a filter. Before changing the oil and cleaning the pan, I decided to give the car a bit of attention. It started up, it runs. I think it's earned it. I apply the seat cleaner and let it sit for a bit, so it can soak in and start working. I also apply a shampoo solution, diluted with water, for hand washing. Then I grab a sponge and simply start scrubbing. And as you can already see, the seats are getting cleaner and noticeably lighter. After cleaning, I recommend using an extractor to fully remove the dirt from deep inside the fabric. You can now see the before and after, a clear visual difference. It's a real example of the results I get from the products I use regularly, and I can confidently recommend Genius Detail for your car detailing needs. For a better comparison, you can also see one seat fully cleaned and the other one untouched. The difference is huge. Also worth mentioning, they're shampoos for hand washing and foam cannons. The foam is thick, spreads evenly, and has a neutral pH level, which is safe for the paint. They offer a wide range of quality detailing products. You'll find more info in the description below. Now I'm moving on to the oil change and cleaning the oil pan. First, I put the car on jack stands. Safety first. I use 2 sturdy stands to keep everything stable, so I can work underneath without any risk. After one of the drives, I noticed oil spots under the car. So now it's time to find out where the leak is coming from. Take a look at the turbo oil return line. It's completely covered in oil. I'm guessing that's the source of the leak, but we'll come back to that later. Next, I remove the drain plug. The oil is very dark and thin. On turbo engines, oil tends to get dark pretty quickly. That's totally normal. If everything runs well, I'm planning to change the oil every 3,000 kilometers. So don't be surprised by how black it looks. Before I could remove the oil pan, I had to take off the lower transmission torque mount, that bracket underneath the transmission that connects to the subframe. It blocks access to the rear bolts of the pan, so it had to come off first. Not the easiest thing to remove, but I got it done. Once I unbolted the oil pan, I realized something else was in the way. A section of the downpipe was sitting right under it. I wouldn't be able to get the pan out unless I removed the turbo and the exhaust. And honestly, I didn't feel like doing all that. So I made the decision to just cut the pipe using an angle grinder. Simple and effective, and it let me move forward. After removing the oil pan, I noticed that the turbo oil return line was connected using a regular rubber hose, not rated for hot motor oil. It had already started to break down, which likely caused the leak. I'll be replacing it with a reinforced hose that's heat and oil resistant. Inside the oil pan, I also found a small amount of sludge. Nothing major, but it was there. I cleaned it thoroughly, removed the oil pickup tube, flushed it out, and reinstalled it. Then I reattached the pan using a new gasket. Next, I changed the oil filter, removed the old one by hand, pre-filled the new one with fresh oil, and lubricated the gasket to make the next change easier. I installed the filter by hand, no tools needed. I filled the engine with fresh 10W40 oil, a better fit for a turbocharged setup. Checked the level, all good. That oil spot under the car should be gone now. Now it's time to move on to the turbo setup. Before installing the blow-off valve, I started thinking, how exactly is the fuel delivery supposed to work under boost? I don't have a tuned ECU that can properly calculate the air-fuel ratio. So the only option left is mechanical control, using vacuum lines and fuel pressure regulators. Since I'm not too experienced with setups like this, I reached out to my friend Nick. He knows turbo engines inside and out, especially Hondas, and I'm really grateful he took the time to help. Here's how he explained the system.
The right thing, ground switch is doing the right thing, the adapter. The idea is, right now, would be like when you flick the switch on, there has to be power to this, because this is a ground switch, and that kind of works the relay backwards. So as of now, when you flick it on, it would be like you're under boost, but there's nothing running, so there's no fuel going anywhere. But it's still sending the signal like it is. You flick it on, you turn it on. As soon as the engine gets vacuum, it'll get vacuum in the intake manifold. It'll suck this, which will then disengage that, so that when you're in vacuum, nothing's working, and you're breathing through just this, going to atmosphere air over here. When you get out of vacuum, out of sucking into lower, like up to zero or positive pressure, this then disengages all of that and clicks over, makes the map sensor trick it into breathing atmosphere pressure air, tricks it into giving the fuel that it needs, and then lets your turbo go doo. So it's kind of it's a homebrew turbo system that's kind of foolproof. Like think of it like a mid-80s like turbo power, right? Like how they're very limited to safety precautions, and your safety is how little or less you give on your foot and with your readings on your AFR. Yeah. As long as your AFR is fine, dude, this thing will be fine. Okay.
After Nick figured out the vacuum lines and checked the sensors, we went for the first startup. This time with the turbo fully connected. You can hear the engine running rough. Nick opens the throttle to force the ECU to adjust fueling, but the engine stalls as soon as it drops back to idle. I'm mostly observing and learning during this part. I don't have experience with manually tuning turbo setups. Nick is going through all the vacuum lines, checking how everything's connected, the MAP sensor and other components. He's trying to track down the issue. Nick changed something in the vacuum setup, and the engine started running better. It's still not perfect, but at least it doesn't stall anymore. I went to check the AFR gauge. It read 10.0, the lowest possible value. That means the mixture is way too rich, most likely because the engine isn't getting enough air from the turbo side. Another indirect sign of an incorrect air-fuel mixture is smoke coming from the exhaust, along with a strong fuel smell. Nick doesn't give up. He's checking everything for the third time. He's replacing hoses, swapping out T-fittings, and carefully listening to how the engine runs. There's definitely a leak somewhere in the system, and that's likely why the valve that should be sending air from the turbo isn't opening. After confirming, twice, that the vacuum lines were sealed tight, Nick turned his attention to the valve I had pulled from the car. And sure enough, that's where the leak was.
One little thing, but now it's running.
Yeah.
What's our air fuel at?
Okay.
Probably should be 12.2, 12.5.
Yes.
Huh?
12.8.
12.8?
Yeah.
See?
I was lucky. My friend had already anticipated what parts we might need and brought everything that could come in handy, including that valve. After replacing it, we hit the road to test the turbo. After driving about 500 meters, Nick suggested we pull over to fine-tune the fuel delivery for better system performance. for the first time, I'm actually enjoying the ride in this revived turbo project. I'm not revving it all the way to redline, but even so, in second gear, the tires break loose just a little. I'm genuinely happy, and really thankful to my friend for helping make this happen.
Things in the way!
That's okay. You got a smile on the face. Yeah. That's good. You're no shortage of smiles in this car. Ever.
Yeah.
Even if it's running like shit, you still hear the turbo going. It's like, I love it. And you get lots of good smiles and good looks too.
It's been a couple of weeks since we tuned the turbo, and the car is running great. But there's still a long road ahead. Manual tuning is fun, no doubt. But ideally, I'll install a proper performance ECU that can handle turbo setups the right way. The suspension needs work too. I want the car to handle better, maybe even lower it a bit. The steering rack needs replacing, the bushings are worn out, and the wiring behind the dashboard is a mess. There's just too much going on in there. And of course, the body needs some serious attention. This car has potential. It just needs some effort and love. There's a lot more to come. I'll see you in part 2. Thanks for watching.